the Formula One Eurosport by Ford, Formula One's most successful team, Hitachi, Elf Oil, world champion, and Goodyear.
But of course, from that very high speed down to second gear, down to about 60 miles an hour, to brake and turn into the corner, everybody has to be very, very alert indeed, because those up behind are still on full throttle, while the others, of course, are on the brakes.
John, I'm here with a man who's on the grid, but rather would be in a car, Eddie Irvine, who did a race this morning, Eddie.
Yeah, I was driving around in the Porsche, and I can't wait to get back into the Formula One. It'll be a lot easier.
Yeah, after Rubens' accident, are you doing some testing fairly soon?
Yeah, after Monaco, I think I do 2 days at Silverstone before Barcelona.
Now, you're very a Formula One driver has to be very fit. How hot was it in one of those saloon cars?
It was obviously a lot hotter than the actual Formula One because you've no air getting in around you and to evaporate the sweat off you, so you're very, very hot. The loads aren't very high, the steering's quite light, and the G-forces are quite low, but the actual temperature is very, very hot in there.
Okay, well, John, I hope Eddie will join us later in the commentary booth. Back to you.
Well, thank you. Well, the deputy, or Andrea de Cesaris, who's standing in for Eddie Irvine in his first Grand Prix of the year. He was sent back 17th quickest this morning, and Andrea finding the return to Formula One maybe not as easy as he had anticipated, and one of the changes, of course, is using a fully automatic, or as automatic as the regulations allow, gearbox. And in fact, he's back in 21st place on the grid. So the only positive I think Andrea has to look forward to is that this morning he did a very good time indeed, but also this is a difficult race. It's 61 laps, and it is a very hard, mechanically demanding race. The long straight, which begins just in front of the pit straight and continues all down through Tamburello, right down to Tossa. It's full throttle for around about 15 seconds. Mechanically, this circuit is very, very hard indeed. Well, there is Andrea de Cesaris, and he's going to be driving the Jordan in the Grand Prix at Monaco in 2 weeks' time. But I'm sure the team really cannot wait to get back to the regular two-driver setup of Rubens Barrichello, who's back now in England, having flown out earlier this morning, and Eddie Irvine, who will be returning to the Jordan team for the Spanish Grand Prix. Well, looking through the times from this morning's warm-up, clearly quickest Ayrton Senna, and he was 0.9 faster than teammate Damon Hill, and apparently Senna is extremely confident about the Grand Prix this afternoon. Now, his principal challenger, Michael Schumacher, way down in 11th place, totally unexpected. Well, I spoke to Tom Walkinshaw and Ross Brown after that warm-up, and they just stood around with smiles on their face, and when asked what was the problem, they just said simply, no problem at all. We were just going through a program of work which we had set out prior to the session. We know what our car can do in conditions at 2 o'clock, which is the time the Grand Prix will start. We're not concerned about trying to be quickest in the 30-minute session between 9:30 and 10 o'clock in the morning. They're confident about what their man will do. They're confident in the reliability of the Benetton Ford, and they know after 2 Grand Prix races that, in a sense, not luck, but the results have been going with them.
John, I'm here with Andrea de Cesaris, and we'll go in front of the camera. He's talking to his engineer, Steve Nichols, and they're deciding just, I think, on the setup of the car at the moment. But what I would really like to know from Andrea is whether he will... Andrea, can you let us into how many pit stops you're going to make this afternoon?
2 pit stops. 2.
That's definite. Is it good to be back here?
Yeah, I'm very happy. Now I want to do a good job for the team and for everybody, so I'm really looking forward to it.
And John said just now, after the warm-up, you're much more happy than you were yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, because I modified the position in my car and also improved the accelerator. I changed the position of the accelerator and I feel much more comfortable.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Good luck. And John, back to you.
Well, thank you. And Andrea certainly getting more acclimatized to Jordan Hart. And all those small things, I mean, pedal positions. He did say that the pedal in the car, throttle pedal in particular, the pedal that Rubens Barrichello would normally use, it doesn't suit the shape of his foot. He's got a larger foot, so he needed a pedal where the point of pressure was much higher on his foot, not right behind the ball. And it's little details like this that really are so important. And if you're not comfortable in the car, then your concentration will not focus on the job of driving.
Well, John, the next person we would like to interview was Johnny Herbert, but he's gone to the toilet. So we go to the front of the grid and see who we come along.
Well, Alan, just interesting listening to Andrea's decision about 2 tyre stops. I suspect that we're going to see other people, other teams, doing more than 2, possibly 3, and maybe even as many as 4. Again, the strategy becoming such a vital part, and these, in effect, very closely guarded secrets. I'm surprised that Andrea was as candid to us as he was in relation to his pit stops. But I think in the case of De Cesaris, it's probably sensible to allow him the least amount of disruption to his Grand Prix. Let him develop a rhythm and let him do the minimum number of stops that would be required.
We're here with Christian Fittipaldi. Christian, I understand you weren't happy with qualifying, but this morning the warm-up went much better.
Yeah, we were really bad on the first 2 days. We changed the car completely this morning and we went for a really crazy setup, which I think went quite well. Now I'm staying with it. And it's a shame I'm starting a little bit in the back, but I think that if I go until the end of the race, the chances of finishing the points are very, very big.
You think the team has been a bit of a surprise, maybe not to you, but to all the other teams and the public out there so far this season?
No, I really don't think so, because Arrows had a very good car. So this year they made a little bit of changes. The Ford engine is very good and I'm really happy to be running with them.
Okay, good luck this afternoon. John, back to you.
Well, Christian Fittipaldi starting on the 8th row of the grid, and his teammate Johnny Morbidelli back on the 6th row of the grid. But as Allard did point out, strong performances from Fittipaldi and Morbidelli. They were 6th and 7th and separated by a 1/10 of a second. And although that 30-minute session in the morning isn't in effect a guide to the race at all times, it's encouraging for a team when they've had a problem in the qualifying session to be able to rectify it and go out and run strongly in that 30-minute session. It's good confidence building, particularly for 2 young drivers at the start of a Grand Prix.
John, I'm here with Martin Brundle, Eurosport regular last year and hopefully this year as well. Martin, was it disappointing in qualifying?
Well, we had a frustrating qualifying. By the way, hello Eurosport viewers for the first time this year. It's a new engine to Formula One. There are going to be problems. I expected it, but it doesn't make it any more difficult to accept when there's a bad weekend. But, you know, it's a long way to go in the race.
How much more professional is the Marlboro McLaren team in, well, compare it with other teams you've been driving for?
Well, I think I've joined the team at a difficult time with the new engine, but of course it's a mighty team. There's a lot of people, a lot of resources, and many aspects of the team are fantastic.
And let's hope you get a result this afternoon and not like Ida.
Thanks.
Okay, good luck, Martin. Well, back to you, John.
Thank you, Allard. Well, Martin Brundle certainly looking forward to his 3rd Grand Prix with the Marlboro McLaren Peugeot team. And Martin just having a little look around the car. But while he's doing that, we're going to take a short commercial break. Stay with us and join us on the grid in San Marino.
Eurosport.
Yes, of course. MTV Europe Fever.
Yeah! Eurosport.
And you?
Oh yes, Euronews.
Est-ce que vous connaissez Eutelsat?
Oui, TV5.
Und Sie?
Deutsche Welle. NBC Super Channel.
And you?
Eutelsat, an exciting selection of unscrambled TV channels via satellite at 13 degrees east.
Thai, Thailand. Discover the treasures of a kingdom.
Eurosport, live.
Welcome back here on Eurosport with Frédéric Saint-Jouer. Frédéric, what's the objective for Peugeot in the third Grand Prix of the season?
Je pense qu'à ce stade de la compétition, l'important pour nous, c'est que les voitures soient à l'arrivée. Ensuite, bien entendu, nous chercherons les points, mais l'important, c'est vraiment que les voitures arrivent ce coup-ci.
Well, John, my limited friend says that it's very important for Peugeot to finish this race, and it's a bonus to get in the points.
Well, certainly Peugeot have put an enormous effort into their Formula One program, and this is only the beginning. But the difference, of course, with Formula One and the other forms of international motorsport Peugeot have been involved in is there are 16 Grand Prix in a year, and they come from now on every fortnight, and that is an enormous pressure placed upon the engineering side of a very large manufacturing company, and it's obviously very difficult just to maintain the engines, the current engines that are in current use, along with a development program to ensure improvements in competitiveness and principally, of course, in horsepower. And that's the search that everybody in Formula One is always looking for.
Well, we are arrived at the Sauber team looking for Carl Wendlinger, who has been behind teammate Heinz-Harald Frentzen a couple of times. And Carl, it's hot. Is it very physical around here for you?
No, not too much, because Imola has a lot of fast straights. You can rest there a little bit. Oh, it's okay. It's not...
Are you going to go for 2 stops or maybe 3 stops, or don't you want to tell us?
Oh, I don't know actually. I think 2 stops might be for us the right way to go.
Well, good luck with the race. So that's another 2-stop runner, John.
Well, it's interesting that teams that maybe are less certain about what the strategy they should use as opposed to what maybe is the best strategy. And we'll keep an eye on the Sauber Mercedes team, because 2 stops may well be to their advantage. But I do suspect that the Sennas, the Schumachers, Damon Hill and possibly Ferrari equally will be looking for the quickest way to get through 61 laps of this Imola 3.1 mile circuit. And from the calculations that I've been told the teams have made, that's the way to go.
Mika Häkkinen qualified, not very happy, but John, he said this morning, watch me, I'm going to be 4th into the first corner.
What do you mean not happy? I'm usually always smiling, but yeah, sure, the qualifying wasn't what I expected to be. And did I say 4th?
Yeah.
Or I'm not lying, I think.
Well, which position are you going to be out of the corner then?
Yeah, that's a different question. I tell you, it will be very difficult start because it's not much traction. We don't got much downforce in the cars, and we will spin a lot. Yeah. And it will be very difficult, but I'm confident. I try to be smooth as possible, and I try to be smooth, like I said.
Okay. Good luck with it, Mika.
Well, Mika was pretty electric in the Pacific Grand Prix in Japan, and he certainly got plenty of bite and grip off the grid there. But here, of course, cars running a lot less downforce overall, and of course that equally reflects in the amount of traction you're going to get off the start. So with the loss of traction control, the onus comes very much back to the driver. Now, with a very powerful engine and a lot of RPM, which is what these engines need to get off the line, it is easy not just to break traction, but to keep the traction, the wheels spinning. So the man that can get that balancing act best will definitely benefit. But of course, it all will then come down to the toss or hairpin bend. You've got to be very clear and decisive on braking into that corner. You've also got to be aware of what's going on behind you, because as I said earlier, the cars behind you will still be on throttle when you're on the brakes.
Well, we are looking at a picture of Gerhard Berger, I think. I'm here with JJ Leto, John, and JJ, I think we could say welcome back. Are you happy so far?
Well, I'm very happy. I mean, the qualifying was going very, very well, and we had some problems yesterday in the second qualifying, so it wasn't perfect, but on the 5th place after 3 months is not bad. Just looking forward to the race, and hopefully my neck is strong enough to last the whole race.
Yeah, I can see you wearing 2 neck straps. The team, you weren't very quick in the warm-up this morning. Does that indicate you might go for a one-stop race or might go on different tires? You don't want to tell me, I think.
I'm not going to tell you anything. We will see. It's all surprise.
Well, there's a big smile on his face, so I think they know what they're doing, John.
Well, I think it's more than his contract is worth. As we've had a very cheeky Alain Prost poke his nose and his tongue in to our commentary position, he's, I think, going to do a bit of the same for TF1 in France. But JJ and Michael Schumacher have been sworn, I think, to secrecy regarding their strategy. And of course, this is not a game. This is very serious motor racing. And it is going to be the decision made by the team, also by the amount of the lap speed at any given point in the race, and also what the opposition, and the opposition, of course, principally here is going to be Senna and Damon Hill in the Rothmans Williams Renault. So keeping an eye on the opposition, keeping an eye on your own times, and really then just constantly updating the little data bank that the teams draw their information from.
Having a little rest in the shade is Gerhard Berger. Gerhard, it must be electrifying with all these people cheering you on.
Yes, I mean, it's great to have such an atmosphere. It's one of the greatest races what I had in my 10 years career from the people, from the fans. But the other side, I have to say, after what's happened yesterday, it's still a bit difficult to enjoy. It's no good feeling in the moment, and I think it takes a few days to get over these things.
How important is the first corner going to be for you?
First corner always is important, but I think we are not in a stage in the moment to really fight for the win, but we are in a stage in the moment to make good points. And as it goes forward, I think later on in the race, later on in the season, we're going to have some chance. So I think it's more important now to be a bit calm and to bring points home.
Well, good luck, Gerhard Berger. And he's got a lot of singing Ferrari fans behind the fence there, John.
Well, certainly the thousands and thousands of fans in Imola this weekend are here primarily to support the Ferrari team, Gerhard Berger and stand-in Nicola Larini, while Jean Alesi has been seen walking around the pits, really fidgeting, desperate to get himself back into the Ferrari cockpit and to pick up from where he left off in Brazil, where he scored points, and of course looking for that elusive maiden Grand Prix victory.
Well, John, we're being asked to leave the grid, so I will go up to the commentary position and I will join you shortly.
Well, looking down onto the grid, and let's go through it rather quickly because time is going to pass. And of course, Senna on pole position, alongside him on the right-hand side, Michael Schumacher. And the second row of the grid, Gerhard Berger and Damon Hill. JJ Leto in the third row we're looking at now, and Nicola Larini in the second of the Ferraris. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, the first of the 2 Sauber Mercedes, and Mika Häkkinen, the first of the 2 Marlboro McLaren Peugeots. So this is a fairly tense moment as everybody making the final checks and adjustments. A little bit of tank tape that is used just to cover up some of the parts on the car, and those final moments of checking around the car. Well, Ayrton Senna looking very composed indeed as he sits in the cockpit of his Williams, and very much deep in thought about what's in prospect. 61 laps, very mindful indeed of what occurred 2 weeks ago in the Pacific Grand Prix when he got jumped into the first corner. He had to get on the brakes fairly heavily, and Mika Häkkinen, who was really hoping to follow Senna through, wasn't in a position to avoid it. They made light contact, and enough, of course, to spin Senna out across the track into the gravel trap. And of course then finally Nicola Larini, who was compromised in that moment ended up driving into the front wheel, and that ended Senna's Pacific Grand Prix. Well, Allard has made it back up, and we've had some news from Goodyear. They've kindly brought us up information on the start of the race. Everybody are starting on D's except for Ken Tyrrell. So Kia Katayama and Mark Blundell are going to be on C compound tires. Now, I don't know whether that's a decision they will stick to throughout the race, but certainly, again, referring back to the Pacific Grand Prix, a number of teams chose to start on the slightly harder compound for the first, up to the first fuel and tyre stop. So I'm quite certain that Tyrrell's strategy is to go conservative up to the first stop, but in their assessment then decide whether to go on a second set of C's or go over to the D's.
Well, John, there's one thing that I could say down there. It's very, very hot.
Well, you can see, looking into Mika Häkkinen's car, the fans that the teams bring onto the grid, there's so much heat under the engine cover that to ensure that there's no heat build-up and therefore possibilities of fuel vaporization, they bring along portable fans which they fit into the air intakes, and that pumps air through the radiator and lets all that hot air that's soaking around the engine get displaced out the back of the engine itself, back out under the bodywork and over the top of the diffuser.
So it's Ayrton Senna on pole position, alongside him Michael Schumacher. There we see Okio Katayama, the man who had a problem in the morning warm-up where he had no fuel pressure and only did half a lap. The race will start fairly shortly, but before that we're going to take a very short commercial break here on Eurosport. Please join us after that for the start and the whole San Marino Grand Prix here on Eurosport.